Really? You wanna zig when everybody else is zagging?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when every Canadian out there goes to Israel and I try to do a different move. It's makes it more interesting, I think.
Welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast. I'm Matthew Piaro. With me is Matt Hansen. Welcome, Matt.
Hello, it's been a while. I haven't seen you forever.
Not exactly true. We see each other in the office multiple times a week, but...
You don't really talk to me at the office.
Well, we're busy. And welcome, Jake Williams. Good to see you again.
Hey, great to see both of you. I do not, in fact, work in your office, so it has, in fact, been a while, and always a pleasure to be on, and can't wait to get into today's topics here.
Yeah, how are you feeling? Cyclocross season is over. Are you suffering from withdrawal? It's been roughly a month since Worlds. All the series from X2O, Super Prestige Exact, they've all wrapped up, at least in the last 2 weeks. Are you okay, Jake?
Yeah, I am coping. I have to say I have come off the black gold roads of my whoosh, and I've been putting in some indoor training, and things are, going all right. Same old, just getting ready for classic season. Looking forward to some hopefully exciting races coming up in about a month or so.
Well, that's right. And also opening weekend is in a few days, so that's exciting as well.
Oh, of course.
Will you be racing the Classic this year, Jake?
Yeah, actually, so funnily enough, Ghent Wevelgem this year is my target race.
Okay.
I last won it actually in 2015.
Is Reg still open for that, or?
The prices did just go up, but my team has offered to start a GoFundMe for me, so we'll see.
That My Whoosh is really good if you're getting ready for Ghent Wevelgem.
Exactly. And speaking of the 2015 edition, you've never seen me or Luca Paolini in the same room. I'm just saying it. Google it. I might be him.
The resemblance is uncanny. In this episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast, the feature interview is with Mathias Guillemette. He is a track rider. He was at the Track Champions League, and you might remember in 2022, that's where he won an elimination race and led the endurance competition for one round. He's an Olympian. He was at Paris this past summer. But this year, he's on to something different. That is our feature interview. That will be coming up in just a moment. But first, let's talk a bit about some news and some racing that's been going on for the last little bit. Actually, Jake, I want to reach back in time to cyclocross. And the Worlds was pretty good to watch from the Canadian perspective. The big hope was Raphael Carrier, and she was on the podium, third. I actually spoke with her about a week after, and it was very funny. Well, not funny, but she had to jump right back into school. There were exams from last semester to do, and she was a week late getting a jump on this semester. So this is the glorious life of a cyclocross star, from bronze on a podium in Europe to exams in Quebec.
I remember once seeing there's this, the Roger Hammond, he was junior world champion, I don't know when, late 80s, 90s. And I remember, the next day he was back at school kind of thing. And it's just always strange to me that this junior star can be, winning something. And the next day it's like back to normal. Although I'm sure he got a bit of a hero's welcome at his school in Britain.
Yeah, you'd hope so. I mean, nowadays they're just all on Zoom, so it must feel frighteningly lonely. And all the socialization is done on the podium, I guess. I don't know. Kids these days, eh?
Kids these days.
Man, it's tough.
She will be racing mountain bikes actually very soon, later in March. She continues with a Pivot OTE. She says mountain biking is still her favorite discipline. However, she's going to mix it up on the road with Arkea B&B Hotels Women much later in the year, after August 1st.
Interesting. So no spring road racing for her, clearly.
What I took away from our conversation is it's mountain biking, at least, until after Worlds.
Yeah, I think her stagiaire starts in August.
Correct. And last year, her first time doing Junior Worlds, she was second on the World's podium. So she's, very keen to do well there again. We mentioned opening weekend earlier. One person who unfortunately won't be there is Sarah Van Dam, the Victoria rider who races for Trois-Rivières Pro Cycling team, got clipped by a car. This was back in January in Australia, in Adelaide to be specific. I spoke with her. She's on the mend. The break to the collarbone is, well, it's a break. It's keeping her from racing, but she's still able to lean forward and ride on her trainer. She raised the handlebars a little bit. So that was good. But what we realized is that Adelaide is cursed. Do you know why Adelaide, Australia is cursed?
No. Tell us.
Well, almost a year previous, her teammate on the track, that is Aaron Attewell, crashed and broke a collarbone in Adelaide. Adelaide is against specifically women riders from Victoria, Canada.
Wow.
And their collarbones.
Careful. Hopefully that news doesn't get down there. Most impressive part about that incident was apparently Sarah didn't go down. Mm-hmm. So apparently a broken collarbone and she kept it upright. I mean, you've got to get like points from the UCI, right? Like if you can keep up from that, she should like get more points just from, an anti-relegation of some sort. It's just super impressive.
Totally it is. It totally is. But what that injury meant was Sarah Van Dam could not participate in the other Australian races she was planning to do at that time, including the Cadel Evans race, which she thought suited her abilities. And this also keeps Van Dam out of opening weekend Omloop at Nieuwsblad.
Yeah, but it sounds like it could have been much worse, right? So at least you can keep riding. So that's the only plus side, right?
All right, shall we look to opening weekend, gentlemen?
Yes.
All right, let's stick to the women's race. The start list has on it Demi Vollering. She just won. Do I got to say the whole name of the race she won?
Yes, you do.
Setmana Ciclista Volta Femenina de la Comunitat Valenciana. A race in Valencia.
That's one of those like 7 days. There's just 5 days, like it's just all these titles of races are lies.
Other riders, other big names, Katarzyna Niewiadoma and Elizabeth Diagnan, who won in 2016. She's there. I actually think Sylvia Persico might do all right. She's had a bunch of top threes, but no win yet this year. What are you guys thinking about the women's race?
Yeah, I like Vollering a lot. So, I mean, she's just such a powerhouse. So I always kind of bet with her, although I don't actually bet. But if I were a betting man.
Yeah, my money's on Cassia. I mean, I think just the form, the motivation. I know Demi's also got quite the new leaf turn, but I mean, how can you bet against Cassia?
I just did.
On to the men's race. Let's see. Will Wout van Aert get it together? You wrote a story recently, Matt, that he says, or picking up on comments, he said that he's not the fastest Belgian anymore.
Yeah, I think he's being cheeky, but I mean, I definitely think that he's the guy to watch, and I'm always a big fan of his racing style, and I mean, I could see him taking a win on either day. I think my big hope is all these guys keep it upright this year, because that was just such a horrible spring last year when all these guys hit the deck. It was just awful.
And maybe Jan Tratnik, though, who's now on Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, no longer a teammate of Van Aert's. Maybe he can defend. I don't know.
That's true. The first ever winner wearing a neck buff. I think that was, remember last year? That was impressive. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Unreal. Is Wout going to wear that helmet? Not to make it all about fashion, but that was quite the...
All right, man. I think it's funny how like all these helmets, like it's kind of like, well, that doesn't look as stupid as some of the other ones. You know what I mean? Like I guess that's okay. Like now that we've just been inundated with these giant helmets, and now they have the aero helmets, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, that's not as bad as the other ones, I guess. But it just become normalized. Stupid helmets are normalized now.
I think one of our colleagues in the office said regarding, I think it was a helmet, or maybe it was sunglasses. His comment was, oh, please don't let this catch on. I don't want this to become normalized. Things are already crazy enough. I don't want to wear that.
Yeah, it's just funny how some things like the sunglasses and all these things, like at first you're like, wow, that's never going to be cool. And then you're like, wow, I kind of want those, a year later.
But in the wider public, people still think it's weird to go clippity-clop in the cafe with your road shoes on. A lot of people still don't think that's boss.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, sometimes when you go on these group rides with mammals, we go into the grocery store or whatever, and they think they might look cool, but you don't. You know, a bunch of middle-aged men with clippity clop lycra getting granola bars and Cokes is not a good look.
And we can say this because we are mammals ourselves. Well, maybe Jake, you're not quite full M. You're not quite M.
I'm getting there. Thank you for aging me out here. I do appreciate it. I'm not as old as you two.
You're a junior mammal.
A jammal.
That's it.
Jammal? Oh, okay. We've done some good work already here, folks. What else are we looking at on the start list of Omloop? We have, Canadians, Riley Pickrell, Guillaume Boivin on Israel Premier Tech. I feel like they might be supporting maybe Joseph Blackmore, Riley Sheehan, maybe?
It would be nice to see Boivin again in the mix in one of these classics, like after Roubaix or the fall Roubaix, the weird Roubaix. That was a pretty amazing time for him. But anyway, he still might have a job to do. So,
and you guys haven't talked about Pitters there, Mr. Tom Pidcock and his new team. He'll be starting, won't he?
Yes, with support from Nicholas Zukowski. The Canuck who's been on that team for a while, maybe he's showing Thomas Pidcock the ropes about how they do it Q36.5, even though Mr. Pidcock seems to be fitting in quite well at that team.
And Nick's been doing, he's got a job, but he just did the Ruta del Sol and he did the Alula Tour. And he's, always finishing 40th overall, something like that, respectable stuff. So he's got some form for sure.
Who else has got a Maple Leaf in this race? I think that might be it. Although I should mention the women's race has a bunch of Canucks that I did not mention as of yet. Maggie Coles-Lister is there on human-powered health. There is Chiara Lilac and
Olivia Barry.
Yes, on Movistar, Olivia Barry. There's Florence Normand. That's Lilac's teammate on Windspace Orange Seal. And then there's Adele Normand, who is Florence's sister, but Adele is on a different team, St. Michel Preference Home. Ober 93.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time. Well, the men's team first, but yeah.
So after Omloop, of course, the second part of opening weekend is Kurne Brussels Kurne, which, as I understand it, is Jake's least favorite race. Not a fan of Kurne.
Yeah, it just maybe hasn't had the same firepower in years previous. I don't know. That's just my initial take on it. I think, I don't know. It just seems to kind of end when other races finish. You know what I mean? I don't know. Please, at me if I'm off on that. But they just kind of they finish, they end. I don't know.
So it's an unsatisfying race to you. Interesting.
Yes, that is exactly how I would put it. And I mean, that might have something to do with the buildup of it all and what's coming. I find that early March races, late February, it's hard because we still look at our windows and we're nowhere close. Whereas we get closer through the classic season and it feels a little bit more attainable. Like we ourselves also will be riding outdoors. So it's a bit of a selfish, maybe a selfish viewpoint in that respect.
It's just jealousy.
Yes. Straight up. Yeah, nothing too complex there. You're right.
If you're suffering through snow and winter and you're going to watch people ride in Europe at the start of their season, you want a more interesting course than Kurne Brussels Kurne. If you're tuning in at early morning on a Sunday in February / early March, it's early March this year, you want something more than KBK.
Yeah, I need throw a couple more bergs in there or something, maybe a bit of stone, just something.
All right. Wow. Jake's hot take. There you have it, everyone.
Yeah, there you go. Cancel KBK.
Whoa!
You heard it here first.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
I can't imagine the comments we're going to get. This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is supported by MS Bike. Even though it's February, and I don't know about you, but I see lots of snow outside, but even though it's winter, it's the best time to sign up for a cycling event, like one put on by MS Bike. The first rides by MS Bike are in June. They are in Alberta, one from Airdrie to Olds and another from Leduc to Camrose. The latest ride of the season is in Waskesiu, Saskatchewan. That's in September. And there are 8 more. They're in BC, another one in Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia. Whichever one you choose, you have plenty of time to check out our training and preparation advice for MS Bike events. You'll find a link for that in the show notes. Every MS Bike ride is a professional event. It's fully supported with fuel, roadside assistance, and first aid. These events are very welcoming. You only really need a bike, a helmet, and the desire to keep pedaling. Of course, this is all for an important cause. That is, raising money to help those with MS. Did you know that on average, 12 Canadians are diagnosed with MS each day? You can help. Register now and start your fundraising journey at msbike.ca. Let me introduce our feature interview for this episode. It is, as I mentioned, Mathias Guillemette, track star, who will be riding on the road this year. We know him more from Nations Cups, including the one that usually occurs in Milton, Ontario. There won't be one this year. And we've, as I mentioned before, seen him in the Track Champions League. He's a rider from Trois-Rivières. He started racing at a young age. And we're going to hear about his early years before we then move on to more recent developments in Mathias Guillemette's career. So, without further ado, let's have a listen. Mathias Guillemette, welcome to the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast.
Thank you.
You're about to start your first season on Tudor Pro Cycling's Devo team. Before we look to the season ahead, I want to look back well past summer 2024, where you competed on the track at the Paris Olympics, past even 2022, where you're at the Track Champions League and you won an elimination race. I want to go way back to how you got started in cycling. When did you start competing on the bike?
That goes very far. I think it's 2010, I think. 2010, 2011.
How old were you?
8 years old, 9 years old. In that area, I think it's hard to pinpoint when I really started, but I think 2011 was my first real season, if you can call it that. We did like maybe 10 weekends of races throughout Quebec. It's called, I don't know if it's still called the same, but Coupe du Québec. And then you would just race like 2 races in the weekend, and I don't know, the next weekend would be somewhere else, and parents would drive me 3 to 7 hours across Quebec to do all those little races. so yeah, that's how it started and never stopped.
3 to 7 hours, that is dedication. What was little Mathias doing in the back of the car as you were on those like long trips?
Most of the time sleeping, because my brother was also there, so we would be sitting in between, a cooler and a couple piece of luggage. We had the bikes on the top, a bike in the trunk, just luggage everywhere in the car, and just sleep. My parents would drive, and then right after the last race, they would just drive back because we had school the next day, and my parents were working. So.
That's amazing. And your older brother, I believe, Tristan, was also racing at the time, yes?
Yeah, he started racing 1 year after I started racing because I think he was jealous of all the podiums I was getting. So he also started racing and was quite good at it too.
I was wondering about that. I assumed he started racing first because he's the older brother, but and because he also was on was it the national junior team for a bit before you?
Yeah, he was on the next gen elite team for a little bit, did Pan Am championships as an elite in Mexico. And I don't know, he raced all his junior years locally in Quebec and all this good stuff, yeah.
Did you do any other sports like hockey or soccer?
I did soccer or football, they would say here in Europe. Yeah, I did a little bit of soccer when I was young, but it wasn't really my thing. I would mostly just sit on the grass and pick the little flowers. But
Picking dandelions. I love it.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of just boring.
Interesting. And you mentioned, you're calling it football now because you're based in Girona, so you need to try to speak like a local, I guess.
Yeah, I would get in trouble if I said soccer over here.
And what was it that you liked about cycling? Why was soccer boring? Football? Why was that boring? Yet cycling really clicked with you.
I don't even know. Like, I think just I wasn't overly good at soccer, and then my mom also had like a cool looking bike, and I always did like, I don't know, when you're a kid and you just have like a little mountain bike. I always ridden quite a bit, like just for fun and after school and everything. So I guess it was just extending the fun to having more fun in races. And then of course, when you start winning races, it's much more fun.
Well, yeah, that does add motivation when you're when you're good at it and performing well.
For sure.
You mentioned that you raced the Coupe de Quebec, but you also, at least in 2018, you raced Mardi la Chine. Now, that's a Montreal Criterium Series that this year will be running for the 45th time. But like I said, in 2018, it looks like you were a regular there. Tell me about the role of Mardi la Chine and your early cycling career.
Yeah, for me, it's always been hard. Well, once I was in school, like I think up to 2020, it was kind of harder to do especially the first few races, because I'd have to miss an afternoon of school every Tuesday. So it's like the most random day of the week. You're missing the afternoon because I have to drive from Trois-Rivières to Montreal in peak traffic to be there at 4 p.m. so I can race at 5. So, we couldn't do every stage, but I'd try to be there sometimes when my parents would allow it and my teachers would allow it too. So, I mean, I think in 2018, I did 5 stages, if I'm right, and still got third. I think I won 4 of the 5 that I did. I mean, the crits are super nice there. It's like the only real 4-corner, super square crit, super fast. And then after that, you can kind of, in my mind, when I was a kid, it was like the pro race. It's maybe not a pro race, but it felt like a pro race at the time. So it was kind of nice to watch the big boys go super fast and pop some champagne after the race.
Definitely. And, there are pros who do dip into those races every once in a while. I don't know how common it is now, but you do hear stories of pros showing up. And, Hugo Uhl would race it every once in a while. Like when he was coming up, it attracts so many young riders and older riders.
Looks like the mythical race of Quebec. If you win a Mardi la Chine Elite, I mean, you're the real deal in Quebec. No matter who was there, how the race went. If you won it, you're kind of a real dog.
Yeah, it's totally legit racing. Now tell me how you got into track cycling. Was the Bromont track? I know it was recently. It's gone under some renovations. It just reopened. I think it was in 2022, and it was renovated. The Sylvain Adams velodrome, but there was the outdoor track. Now, was that still in operation while you were riding or coming up through cycling?
Yeah, very much so. I did, I think, 3 or 4. It was called the Plateau 52, which is almost like a training camp, like a maybe 4 or 5 day camp at the start of the summer, where they would teach you how to ride track. And then every year, if you did the year before, you would move up, and then you learn more advanced stuff and race a little more, and then do some Kieran maybe, and do some stuff like that. So I think I did mostly all the races at that track. So I'd say maybe from 15 years old, more steadily on the track. I wasn't that much of a fan on the track until my brother was doing pretty good, and I was seeing what actually racing on the track looks like. So yeah, I did use the Bromont outdoor velodrome, but I think it was nice, in the sun all day, sometimes cooking, but kind of nice.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned your brother again, because I was wondering where the switch happened or why, even though you're juggling road and track, how you got track focused. But it was maybe your brother's influence at that point.
Yeah, because at the time he's 3 years older than me, so I was too young to actually race in Milton in the winter and like the proper, I don't know, Canadian races where you can race against people from Ontario and Alberta and all those guys. So I had to like wait in the stands and watch him race a couple of times in the winter. So definitely when I hit I think U15, so 13, I started racing right away there. And it's like, yeah, I was racing in Group B and then Group A in the Youth Cup and then did the Ontario Cups, and then you're just kind of moving up. And at one point he went to Junior Worlds, and then of course I want to go to Junior Worlds too because the big brother went, so I have to go.
Matt and Jake, I'm going to take a break from my conversation with Mathias Guillemette before we get into his next chapter. But Matt, what did you think when you heard that part about young Mathias in the car for 3 to 7 hours heading to races and he's sandwiched between a cooler and a sibling?
That sounded, as another Matt, that sounded very familiar. We had a Ford Aerostar, and I, of course, had 2 siblings, and we'd go to races with my dad, and it was long drive, down to Windsor, Ontario, 5 hours, something like that. But it was fun too, good way to bond, but long drives. So yeah, that definitely resonated with me.
Did you bring your abacus in the car, or what sort of toys did you have?
Well, the good news is that when you're a kid, you don't have to drive. So you could sleep, But the problem is that usually, if I was the youngest, my race would be first kind of thing, And then my brothers, if they're racing whatever, elite or junior, they would be later in the afternoon. So they're always kind of pissed that they had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning or something.
Wow, to be a fly on the window in the Hanson Mobile. I can just imagine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There were some flies too sometimes.
Well, I can only imagine the smell.
Yeah. A bunch of dirty kids, On the way back. It's probably smelling like a hockey bag.
Lovely. All right. We're now going to hear about Mathias Guillemette's time in Paris this past summer at the Olympic Games. First, though, Guillemette discusses an important coach in his track cycling career who is also an Olympian. Mathias, you've worked with Laura Brown for a few years. How many years have you worked with the Olympian Laura Brown?
Oh, maybe since 2021, so 4 years, I'd say, yeah.
I know her more as the part of the bronze medal winning women's pursuit team squads from London 2012 and Rio 2016. I know her more as the athlete, but you know her as the coach. How is she as a coach? What does she help you learn about track cycling?
Well, she's a very open person. Especially with the men's team, it was a very good fit because we all had pretty different ideas about training and team pursuit. So it was a very good fit because she was also kind of starting and coaching on the track or team pursuit. So it was kind of perfect. She just kind of come up with new ways of doing efforts or, new strategies and new ways of doing the training when we get to a new velodrome or things like this. It was very good.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that, but because your team pursuit squad, you and a lot of the other members on it you're all starting at a fairly young age. You didn't have so many senior riders with you. And Laura was also fairly new at coaching. She had only recently retired and moved to that role. So I guess it's a young coach, young squad working together.
Yeah, it was only Mike and Derek had more experience, but Derek was there for a very limited time, only Roubaix and Glasgow. Yeah, Roubaix and Glasgow. And, when we did Paris Worlds in 2022, it was I don't know. We were just trying new things because the teams was me, Dylan, Carson, and Sean. So it was maybe 18 years old, average, And Laura had coached maybe 1 World Championships. So we kind of had to come up with some ideas, We had some brainstorming going on and yeah, she just made it work, and I think we did pretty good.
Interesting. Yeah, some of those names you mentioned, Michael Foley, I believe he's from Milton, but he's a long-time endurance rider. Derek G, of course, made the transition to road, but got a start in track. Carson Matern, junior world champ. And who else did you mention? Oh, Sean McKinnon.
Sean Richardson.
Oh, sorry, Sean Richardson, yes. A bunch of you were at the Olympics this past summer in the team pursuit.
Yeah, the whole team that we just mentioned was at the Olympics.
And from the Olympics, afterwards, you posted on your social media, you wrote, "In short, I am proud of this achievement, but not convinced I should be happy about this result." And the result was 7th in the team pursuit. Can you tell me more about that? Proud, but not convinced you should be happy.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of the expectation, of course, because you're going to the Olympics. It's kind of a once every 4-year opportunity, and it's never a given that you're going to get to go again, because the program could always just, fall short or decide not to inject the funding required to have a team there. So yeah, it was kind of a lot of work to get, second last well, not second last, but only get 7th, because we were definitely aiming for better, faster, and better execution in team pursuit. But we're always hard as athletes. We're always hard on our results and how we do the races. So for sure, we're hoping on a national record and, maybe top 5 or top 4. But yeah, you can't always just do it.
But the time you guys set in Paris for the team pursuit, was that a personal record or was it a team record? It was, I believe, 3 minutes, 48 seconds, 0.964.
Yeah, it was a personal record and pretty much the fastest Canada I've ever went in qualifying. But, from training and from just power data and all that good stuff, we knew that it was possible to go much faster than this. Yeah, given the circumstances of like how the team was going and how everyone in their position was going, it wasn't really possible to do, where we were hoping for, going maybe 45 or maybe faster. It was kind of pushing the limits, but yeah, at least we tried.
Now, were you guys wrestling with a stomach bug at the time, or some of you?
No, all the guys were doing pretty good. Maybe, team pursuing is very precise, and sometimes just missing those like 10 watts or 20 watts can make or break the whole team. So it's more of a detail issue than like a big health issue in the team, I'd say.
So how was your Olympic experience overall, like even beyond the track? How was that experience in Paris this past summer?
Well, I'd say the best part of the experience was actually qualifying. I'd say like going to the Olympics is great, but I think the moment you get, you qualify your spot and you get selected is the best, in my opinion, because you're for sure going to go. Then your result does matter, but at the same time, it kind of doesn't, because you're there and some of the teams are not. So you're kind of the winner anyway. So the experience there was nice because for sure you had the Olympic Games, and most people that are in Paris, they're there to go watch the Olympics, and you're one of the players. So it's kind of cool to just walk around, with the real accreditation and be kind of the top dog there. But yeah, it was a nice experience and kind of a once in a lifetime experience.
Well, let's hope it's not once in a lifetime. We'll get into that maybe a little later in the interview. But you do make an interesting point that there's almost the competition to get to the Olympics is the bigger competition than the Olympics itself.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the very best nations at the Olympics, they normally don't try that hard to qualify. But in nations like us, we have to try so hard to qualify those 2 years before. So yeah, for us, it's just an achievement to, top 5 at Glasgow Worlds or top 5 at Nations Cups. It's really good, and it's kind of hard for a small program like us to make it this far.
Matt and Jake, we're going to get into the most recent chapter, or the chapter that's just beginning in Mathias Guillemette's career. Matt, you actually caught this story when it broke on January 1st. You wrote about it on our website. Guillemette is racing for Tudor Pro Cycling. That's the U23 Devo team, continental, if you will. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. Like, how is a 23-year-old on an under-23 team? How did he connect with a team that he seemingly didn't have any connections with previously? And what will his role on the squad be in the season ahead? Anyway, these are all things that we're going to explore in the next section.
Do they get watches?
I was just thinking that. Do you think the Devo team gets a watch, or they have to like earn it?
Yeah, they're like, sorry, you got to be in the world, or you got to be on the pro team.
Oh, you'll find out. You'll find out. But I will tell you, he's got already a lot of kit, a lot of ASOS kit, which is pretty cool. And, that is some high performance stuff. But Jake, you, in your research, found out that Guillemette likes to tinker with kit himself.
It sounds like he does get pretty creative, and, a lot of these track folks are always looking to, let's call it, cheat the wind. I was watching a podcast from someone named Charles Ouimet on YouTube, and Mathias was saying he was cutting out different pieces of suits and kind of making his own. So apparently he had some BioRacer material to kind of give the arms and sleeves some texture. So I think there's always tinkering to be done when every millisecond matters, and anything you can do to skirt around the commissaires, I feel like, take great joy from, speaking from personal experience. So yeah, it sounds like creativity is key in track.
It sounds like a nice way to learn how to sew. Cyclists a lot of times on the road learn how to cook. They don't know how to cook because they're really hungry. So you're self-interested in aero, so you're going to learn how to sew. That's a neat little byproduct of this.
Cycling home ec.
Yeah.
Cycling can lead to some life skills. Yes, like cooking and sewing.
Not many, but some.
Yeah,
Trust me.
because calculating FTP does not really help you in many areas of life. Before we get into just how Mathias Guillemette got onto Tudor, I need to help set the scene that he ends up building in our conversation. There's, of course, Laura Brown in this scene, who we've mentioned, and that's his coach at Cycling Canada and former Olympian. We've mentioned Derek G briefly, but he figures in this story just a little bit. G, like Guillemette, focused on the track early in his career. And all three of these folks, I feel like I'm setting up a joke. Derek G, Laura Brown, and Mathias Guillemette walk into a bar. No, they walk into Paris. They're at the Olympics, where Guillemette was on the track, G was on the road. And then also in this conversation, a name pops up that Guillemette only refers to as Kurt, but just so everyone knows who we're talking about, it's Kurt Bergen-Taylor, who is the head of innovation at Tudor Pro Cycling. Okay, I've set the scene enough. Let's get back to my conversation with Mathias Guillemette. On January 1st of this year, of 2025, there was an announcement that you would be on Tudor Pro Cycling's Devo team. Take me to what led up to that moment. When did you start chatting with Tudor Pro Cycling, and how did you make that connection? Because to be honest, if the announcement was, oh, you're joining Israel Cycling Academy, I'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I can see how that would happen. But Tudor, I have to admit, was a bit novel to me. It struck me. So take me to how you got into the sphere of Tudor Pro Cycling.
Yeah, that's kind of true with Israel. Actually, like a fun fact is that I didn't even try to apply to Israel, mostly because I wanted to do something different and kind of differently to everyone else, as I always do. But
really, you wanna zig when everybody else is zagging?
Yeah, I think it's interesting when every Canadian out there goes to Israel, and I try to do a different move. It's makes it more interesting, I think. But yeah, it was actually at the Olympic Games. I was kind of talking with Laura how we would get me on a good cycling team, and Derek was at that table, and Derek said, "Oh, you could." And I was talking about Tudor, how they have track riders, and well, they have a track rider and a new pro guy on the team, which is also a track rider from Lithuania. So for sure they have knowledge on how good track riders can be on the road. And yeah, Derek Derek thought about like, hold on, there's like this guy that's head of R&D in Tudor, which worked at Milton for the national team. Yeah, as a sports scientist. And Laura knew him because he worked with her ahead of Rio. So it was kind of a dream scenario when she just sent an email, send the power data. Then there's maybe a little bit of interest, and I had an interview. They thought about it, and then they called me and said, "Oh yeah, we probably take you on the Devo team 1 year." Oh, okay, that works.
So this all happened just following the Olympics. Like, I guess you sent in your email, your application after the Olympics, after that conversation with Laura Brown and Derek G.
Well, yeah, Laura mostly did the job for me. Like, she sent Kurt an email. I think not even an email, maybe just a phone call, and added the head DS on my training peak, and they had a pretty good look at my training in the last like 6 years. And yeah, that was pretty much it.
So it sounds like it was almost a brainstorming session with those two, you and those two. It's like, who do we know? Oh, I know somebody.
Yeah, it was mostly a brainstorming session with Laura, and then Derek just was at the right time, the right place. It was there, and just came with the best idea.
What is interesting to me is that Tudor has like its own talent search program. I was just on the website. You can apply to them. And late last year, they had a big talent search, and three of your teammates come to the team through that talent search. So it sounds like they're open to new ideas about finding riders and finding talent.
Well, yeah, like the team motto is born to dare, which is not just on the kit and on everything for looks. It's also like philosophy of the team, pretty much. Like, they're just willing to do anything differently to maybe have the edge or find the next big thing in cycling. So for sure, that talent pool thing is a great thing. It also means that there is like 800 applicants last year for for that talent pool. So they definitely look through this talent application very slowly, and it's definitely a team that looks beyond just like your results on pro cycling stats and your VO2 max. It's a kind of a team that looks at your whole profile and how you see things and how you work.
So when did you roughly get the news that you were on the team? What time of year was that?
3 weeks before World Championships this year. So that'd be maybe September.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, it's kind of late if you're a pro, an existing pro, to get that kind of news. But for you, did you have complete change of plans for your year ahead? Did that totally change where you thought you were going?
Yeah, I mean, at the time when they signed me, the team was already full, so they had to add a 14th spot to the team and add a non-U23 rider to a U23 team, which is kind of pulling a lot of strings for somebody that they don't even know and barely know anything about. So I was kind of just happy to be on there. And to be fair, I didn't have much plans this year because it's kind of the Olympic hangover year. There's not much going on, only one Nations Cup, and yeah, there's not much going on. So I didn't need to change much. It's just more busy this year than I expected.
You mentioned your age. You are 23 now, and this is a Devo team. I have seen other teams put riders who are technically above the age limit on the Devo teams just to be able to work them into the mix. Do you have any sense of what your role will be as the senior rider on a Devo team?
Yeah, I mean, on Tudor, it's never been done. So it's like a first thing for them too, which, yeah, it's kind of nice. I'm kind of in a role where sometimes I'm in the team house and some of the guys are 4 years younger than me. So I can definitely teach them a thing or two about, washing their dishes or washing their clothes. But beyond that, I'm kind of just more their to get back in the pack on the road and race a little bit. My program is pretty good. My calendar is been kind of created to race 50-50 with the pro team and with the devo team. So when I'm with the devo team, half the time I'm the main sprinter and some of the younger guys are working for me, and other races like Olympia Store, I'm going to be the main lead out guy for the other sprinter on the devo team. So it's also very nice to help some younger guys. Maybe they can teach things to me, and maybe I can teach them a little sprint insights. But also racing with the pro team will be pretty cool too, because it's like in June I think I started racing with the pros. Then I'm really just doing lead outs and sprint support. So it's really the job I want to do and I want to explore. So I'm really looking forward to that.
You anticipated my question, because that was my first thought, is how much will the team play you up into the pro team and then also keep you in the devo team, because teams are allowed to do that. They're allowed to move you up and down a certain amount of time through the year. But that sounds like a really good mix. Like sometimes you're more the teacher, and then other times you're more the student. Through it sounds to me for your upcoming season.
Yeah, like how they develop that calendar, it's kind of allowing me to get the road rhythm back. The first few months, I get more race miles. You get more ready to race harder and harder. And also you get, just being more in the bunch, you get more comfortable inside the race. And then, after I think it's three or four races, I move up and I race exclusively with the pro. I think I'm doing 3 stage races, so that should be pretty good.
Is there anything that has surprised you about working with Tudor?
Well, I think just the way it's organized and like the extent they plan stuff. It's just small things, but just like they have a website where it tells you your next travel. You can click, your plane ticket is there. It tells you who's going to pick you up at the airport. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of crazy because, normally when I go to a race, I get my plane ticket, and I don't know, 2 days before from the person on the national team, and I fly with it. But now, I open my phone, click on it, the plane ticket's there, tells me, oh, this swanger's gonna come pick you up, and it's like all done for me, And the coaches are like, they're working with 3 athletes. So yeah, you have your coaches in your mailbox every day, just asking how training went. Oh, your heart rate was a little high at that point in your ride. Yeah, things like this.
So that's a really good ratio of 3-to-1, one coach to 3 riders.
Yeah, I think my coach has 3 riders on the devo team and 2 on the pro team. So some of the coaches have more, some of the coaches have less, but yeah, it's around that. So they definitely have a lot of time for us.
That's great. And I was gonna trade on some stereotypes there of like Swiss efficiency and Swiss attention to detail with the level of organization that the team seems to have.
Yeah, I mean, even just the training camps, like everything's so dialed. You can't just put your bag in one car without telling anyone, because for sure somebody put on the sheet somewhere that your bag has to be in that compartment in that car. So no, when in doubt, you go look at the spreadsheet, and for sure your bag number 21 is somewhere.
Right. You can't just chuck it on the back seat. You got to put it in its right spot.
Yeah, because somebody is assigned to bring your bag somewhere.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff has the team supplied you with so far?
Quite a bit. Like more than I'm used to, for sure, because I'm not used to have like a training bike and glasses. Like I don't need that many glasses, to be honest. Like I do not need 6 pairs of Oakleys, but I'll take them. But yeah, I think it's not ridiculous the amount we get. It feels just right for like a big team. But I know the pros get much more than us. But we got all the cycling clothing you can wish for, all ASOS, so it's pretty nice. Get a training bike, a racing bike and a spare bike. So that's all dialed in. Yeah, I mean, everything you can wish for, we pretty much get.
So you already have 3 bikes, and I believe your time trial bike, you're a few weeks away from getting that.
Yeah, we're getting a race bike and a training bike too, time trial. In a sense, like the training bike is mostly because you don't have to travel with your bike to every race. It's like you'll just keep your training bike at your place in Girona, and then whenever you go to a race, some mechanic, his poor job is going to be to drive from Switzerland to wherever the race is. So if it's in Croatia, they're going to drive the truck to Croatia, and all the racing bikes are there. They don't have thousands of Ks on them, so they're brand new, and you can just race a bike that you know is going to be in well order.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Have you gotten a watch?
Unfortunately not. I know the pros get them, but I'll need a pro contract for that.
All right. All right. Stay tuned for the watch. My next question, you kind of answered it a bit earlier, but on the track, you're an endurance rider. And it sounds like you're looking more to the sprints on the road side. Can you tell me about sort of the connections between your move from track to road and the type of rider you are?
Yeah, I mean, coming from track endurance, yeah, it's endurance because it's long for the track, but for the road, it's still very short races. Even the Madison would be maybe a third through a road race, so it's not that much riding, to be honest. 50 minutes is very short for any pro cyclist. So yeah, on the road, my profile is definitely from maybe puncher, maybe if I lose weight, and very much so pure sprinter. So yeah, it makes sense to just have me try one thing and be very good at one thing than trying to be good at everything.
Mm-hmm. So tell me what your training has been like over the winter then.
To be honest, pretty nice. It's been very different than what I was expecting hopping on a road team. I thought it was going to be way more intensity and, I don't know, race specific stuff. But after testing, we did some testing in January and some in December. And turns out my peak power is like 3-minute, 5-minute sprint power, and everything is, way good enough. So all I have to do is, ride long hours, build that endurance up, and try to keep the peaks where they're at, and should be good. So we're talking like pretty big weeks, like 20 to 30 hours, but mostly just some days are 6 hours of riding zone 2, and some days are 4 hours of intense sprints and a gym workout after. So it's kind of, you're either going pretty easy, super long, or pretty dang hard and a gym session. Yeah, I mean, it's a very polarized training plan where only 2 times, or we're pushing it when we do 3 times a week, we go really hard. Then the rest of the week is below 140 BPM.
I want to look now way into the future. You've mentioned, or I've seen in other interviews, you mentioned that the Olympics in LA in 2028 are still in your mind, probably on the track, I imagine. Who knows? Maybe the road. But do you have a sense of like how you're going to balance out track and road in the coming years, in the coming 4 years?
Not really. It's for now, my focus is more to find a contract next year, hopefully, or maybe I figured that the road is not a thing I like, but so far I like the training and the lifestyle of just training every day in sunny Spain. So it would be hard to not like it, but yeah, no. So right now it's more so trying to find something sustainable and more long term on the road, and after that, I think it'll be easier to juggle with track and road. But I think this year is a good year to focus way more on the road and try to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you kind of discussed your season ahead earlier, but I was wondering if you could give us a few specifics. We're speaking right now in mid-February. What's the first race you will be doing?
I'm doing Istrian Spring Trophy, which is in Croatia, starting March 13th. I think it's a pretty good race. Some years it's very grimy, rain and icy roads and everything, but some of the years it's pretty nice. So I'm hoping it's going to be nice, and there's good opportunities for sprints and a very interesting prologue, which is 1K long. So I think for a track guy, it's kind of a dream first race. It's kind of a dream scenario where you don't race for 3-4 years on the road, and your very first outing on your new team is a 1K prologue. It's kind of a dream scenario.
It's a kilo. You're doing a kilo.
Yeah, exactly. A kilo.
And what were some of those stage races that are on your plan?
Well, Istrian Spring Trophy is a 4-day stage race, and then I do Olympia's Tour, which is 5-day, I think. 5-day stage race in the Netherlands, which is known to be very rainy, very windy, echelons, messy sprints. So there I'll be working for one other sprinter on our team first time I do support for a sprinter. So I'm looking forward to that. And then a little bit later, I'm doing Tour de Bretagne, which is probably one of the hardest, most prestigious 0.2 you can do. Still a 2.2, but one of the hardest out there, which I'll be the sprint leader. Yeah, maybe I can get some good sprint opportunities there. Then after this, I think I have quite a bit of time to train. In April, I do my first pro outing at Boucle de la Mayenne in France. Yeah, and then Baloise Tour, which is probably the biggest. Well, I need to be the best in the first half of the season with the pros. Gonna be sprint support for the big boys.
Well, Mathias, that sounds really exciting, and I wish you all the best. I hope this a new adventure on the road, even though you're not unfamiliar with the road, but your adventure with Tudor goes well, and who knows, maybe we'll be talking again depending on how these races go.
Thank you very much, and for sure we'll talk again.
And that's the episode. It is written and edited by me, Matthew Piaro. I had help from Matt Hansen. Thank you, Matt.
No problem. Always happy to be the glue here.
And Jake Williams, thanks for your help in this episode.
Always fun to be here, and two mats make a rug, and it takes plenty of glue, so always a pleasure.
Wow.
That was that scripted?
No, it's off the top.
That's not bad.
That's pretty good.
It's not bad. I mean,
it's okay. It's decent.
I mean, of all the Matt jokes I've heard, that's new.
Good. Okay, see, that's what I'm going for.
I appreciate that.
Fresh.
Thanks for the fresh jams, Jake.
Oh, boy. Yikes.
The mat really pulled the room together.
The mats that tie the room together.
Damn, I didn't even get my quote right.
This episode of the Canadian Cycling Magazine podcast is produced by Adam Killick, and he does the music too. That actually ties things together, the music. Thank you, Adam. Thanks also to Ontario Creates for its support. Guys, I looked outside my window and I saw snow, so that means at least 6 more weeks of trainer riding.
Yeah, are you the cycling groundhog?
Yeah, I am now, I guess. Anyway, I will see you guys virtually, and then probably won't be too long till we're on the roads. I have a new the first test bike of the season is in the office. It's a gravel bike. I got to get that put together. It's a Da Vinci Hatchet. I think I can say that out loud. I think it got released just before this podcast came out. So there you go. Matt, you and I can have a thumb war to see who gets to ride it first.
I have very big thumbs.
All right, everybody, thank you for listening. Please rate and review the show. Jake's giving everything a thumbs up right now, so that's what y'all should do. If you're riding outside now, ride safely, be safe out there, and we'll talk to you later.